We're going to be in 2 Kings chapter 3. 2 Kings chapter 3. It's Elisha and Jehoram, or Elisha and the three kings, whichever way you want to cut it. That's kind of where we're at. And we're going to be looking at a continuation. You will remember that last week we had Elisha taking the place of Elijah, correct? And the week before that we saw Elijah's last ministries to Ahaziah, King Ahab's son. And remember, Ahaziah made it a long time, didn't he? He made it all of 2 years. It appears that he fell through lattice work on the roof of his house into his bedroom, got injured, sends some messengers to Ekron to inquire of Baal, and on the way they're met by Elijah, and Elijah says, "Is it because there's no God in Israel that you have to go inquire of Baal Zebub? And go back, you're going to die. Go back, tell him he's going to die." And so they go back, and Ahaziah says, "So who was this guy that he looked like?" "Well, he was hairy and had a belt of leather." And like, "Oh, it was Elijah." We saw all of that. And now Ahaziah dies, and then we have Jehoram, his brother, becomes king in his place. And that's where we find in chapter 3. I've got some really cool photos today. It's really, really neat. It's going to help kind of paint a picture of some of what's going on. And it's helpful to kind of think through exactly, do you ever look at it? Who here likes maps? Does anyone here like maps? You like looking at maps? And who here can sometimes struggle when you're in the... We don't do this anymore. We're sitting there in the car with the map on our lap, and we go, "Okay, turn right." I mean left, because we realize that we're going, we're looking at the map, and the map is always oriented to north, right? And it's not always the way we're driving. So sometimes looking at maps can be tricky, but they can be helpful to kind of see, where are they moving? Where are they going? How are people going about? So what we're going to do is I'm going to read a few verses for us, and then I'm going to kind of set the stage. We're going to see some pictures. All right? And then we'll keep going. Now, as far as application, this is something that, as I was trying to work through this, how do we apply this? Because we're in an Elisha series. We're now in Elisha. Elisha is kind of almost like a side character in this, okay? The focus is on Jehoram and Jehoshaphat. And really what we're going to see is, as you're trying to think through this, you're going to see two different responses. Jehoram thinks God is out to get him, and Jehoshaphat is going to inquire of God and what God has, and believes in God's provision and protection. That orientation, or that worldview, really will grow out of whether we are in obedience or disobedience to God. You ever know that you've been living in disobedience to God, and then you're wondering why nothing seems to be going well? You don't have peace. You begin to wonder, is God out to get me? Is God just there to be sadistic and mess with me? Is God just messing with me? And then you realize, well, in my mindset and the way that I've been thinking about God, that's not been honoring to God. And the way that I've been living for myself instead of God. Those sort of things will affect our perception of events that occur, right? So when trouble comes, we either go, God is out to get us, or, well, let's go to God for the answer. And we're going to see both processes in this narrative, all right? And so I want that to be our kind of thought process as we're thinking through this. So, now Jehoram, the son of Ahab, became king over Israel at Samaria. We've heard that several times in this series, haven't we? Now, extra points. Who was the one who built Syria? Omri. Well, not the Assyrians, but Omri. Remember Omri, the father of Ahab, who's the father of Jehoram, okay? So, Jehoram, the son of Ahab, became king over Israel at Samaria in the 18th year of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, and reigned 12 years. He did evil in the sight of the Lord, though not like his father and his mother. Well, I mean, I guess that's an improvement, right? For he put away the sacred pillar of Baal, which his father had made. Nevertheless, he clung to the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, which he made Israel sin. He did not depart from them. Okay, so Jehoram, although he's not worshiping Baal, he's still worshiping the golden calves that Jeroboam had set up. So here's a more a non-written over map. Remember, up in this area is where Samaria is going to be. And we're going to hear about Moab in a moment. Now we have Moab down here. We have Edom. Now, the stones, here's some standing stones. Sorry about the quality of that picture. I've got some better quality pictures in a little bit. But this is, the word pillar is usually considered to be an unhewn stone set up as a memorial or to honor a deity. This location of the pillar taken by Jehoram is not given. One might expect it to have been in Samaria itself, or perhaps at one of the major cult centers like Dan or Bethel. So the massive standing stones in this pillar, in this photo, are from an earlier period, but illustrate the kind of object that is likely to have been taken down by Jehoram. So there's this massive unshaped stones set up as remembrances. And so Jehoram at least took his down. So we see here we've got the Mediterranean. Here's Israel, Edom, Moab. Over here is Egypt. Goshen should sound familiar. And we're going to zoom in just a little bit. I've kind of edited the map. And this is, you have the northern kingdom up in here, southern kingdom here, Judah. Philistia, remember the Philistines? Notice Gath. We have Mount Nebo. I have some pictures of that. It's pretty cool. And then we have possibly Sodom and Gomorrah down in here somewhere where they're at one point. There's Jezreel. Remember, we've heard about Jezreel, and down here Samaria. Okay? So there's some further map. Now, if you're wondering about modern times, you can actually see we have Lebanon. We're hearing about that in the news today, nowadays. Lebanon. Let's see here. We have Syria, the Golan Heights up in here. You have Jordan, and here's Israel. We have the West Bank right here. And let's see here, Jerusalem's down in here. Of course, Egypt, Sinai Peninsula, Saudi Arabia. And then, of course, we can zoom in a little bit, get a little bit closer. So you can still see the tribal locations of what they were during the time of Elijah and Elisha, and superimposed on that are the current different modern divisions of the land noted by the red. All right, so now Moab. So Ahab dies, and now in verse 5, but when Ahab died, the king of Moab rebelled against, let's go back. Verse 4, now Elisha, king of Moab, was a sheep breeder and used to pay the king of Israel 100,000 lambs and the wool of 100,000 rams. That's a lot of sheep. But when Ahab died, the king of Moab rebelled against the king of Israel. And King Jehoram went out of Samaria at that time and mustered all Israel. Then he went and sent word to Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, saying, the king of Moab has rebelled against me. will you go up with me to fight against Moab? And he said, I will go up. I am as you are, my people as your people, my horses as your horses. He said, which way shall we go up? And he answered, the way of the wilderness of Edom. So, this is where things start getting interesting. So, here is the northern, so here's Moab. So, Edom, remember, is down in here. Here's Moab. Judah is going to be over in here. Israel is up further on the ceiling. And notice right here, there's this valley here. So this is Nahal Arnon. The Arnon is a 2-mile wide valley that divides the land between the Israelite tribes to the north and the land of Moab to the south. So this would not be a great place to try to attack from, right? Attacking from the north. So it's a geographic prominence. You'll probably read about Arnon in the Bible. That's what this is. That is right along in here. So if you look, so this is Moab. It's very fertile. It has very fertile places. Moab, there's a famous, who is descended from someone from Moab? We have David is descended from who, and who is from Moab? Does anyone remember? It's the lady.
Esther.
Close. It's the other one. Ruth. All right? So we have Ruth. Okay? So here we have, I want us to look here. There's the red are the different places. We have the Arnon right here. We're going to see other places, Mount Nebo up in here. Actually, Mount Nebo right up here. Mount Nebo, I got some pictures from the top of Mount Nebo. I did not take them personally, but up in here, Mount Nebo, this is all kind of part of Moab in here. Okay, so, and we're going to be looking around. So here, this is from the mountains of Moab near Mount Nebo, okay? And this is looking southwest from the summit of Mount Nebo. So Nebo looking southwest in this direction. And right, I don't know how well you can see it, but right there is part of the Dead Sea from the top of Mount Nebo. So there we have the Arnon, Mount Nebo. I did that so I didn't have to go back, but I went back anyway. So now there's this is the Medeba Plateau in northern Moab. Okay, and so that's right here. We have Mount Nebo. All right, sorry about the quality. It looks great on my screen. But then here's more of that plateau up in here. It's huge. And there's another view of it. And so we're back at Moab. So now we're zooming out a little bit. We have Edom down in here, Moab. You can see Reuben. And up in here is where Jehoram is. And so now this is the interesting part. Do you see that right there? That's called the King's Highway. Now the King's Highway travels, and so this is from the mountains of Seir and Edom as viewed from the King's Highway. The King's Highway is the most important trade route through the Transjordan, running north from Elah along the Transjordan Plateau. The way of the wilderness of Edom. All right, so we just read about that. The exact referred to here as the way of the wilderness of Edom that the three-king coalition, Israel, Judah, and Edom, took is not clear. This photo shows the shallow southern end of the Dead Sea that would have skirted by the Israelites. The faint outline of the Wadi Numeri is visible along the valley. This may have been the route eventually taken by the Israelites as they made their way towards Kiriath Haresh. Okay, so you can see the King's Way over in here again. There's some more of the wilderness of Edom. Okay, the wilderness of Edom. And so now we have our map. So Jehoram travels from Samaria. They meet up with Jehoshaphat, and they're going to come down and around. So instead of coming this way, I'm going to come down and around this way. And right around in here somewhere, we don't know exactly where, is where the initial battle is going to take place. Hopefully it doesn't fall. All right, so here we go. So they're taking the way of the wilderness of Edom. So the king of Israel went with the king of Judah and the king of Edom. And they made a circuit of 7 days' journey. And there was no water for the army or for the cattle that followed them. Why would they have cattle following them? Probably food, right? All right. Then the king of Israel said, now who's the king of Israel again? Jehoram, right? He's the one who isn't as bad as his parents, but still not obeying God. And this is what he says. Alas, for the Lord, notice all caps L-O-R-D, so Yahweh. So he's not just saying a God. He's not just saying a random God. He's specifying, has called these 3 kings to give them into the hand of Moab. Does that sound... We just have Captain Cheerful with us today. Eh? It's so nice. But Jehoshaphat said, is there not a prophet of the Lord here that we may inquire of the Lord by him? So, isn't there a prophet here that we can inquire and see what God would have us do? So Jehoram's immediate response is, God's out to get us. He did this. He set us up so that we would all die. And Jehoshaphat says, wait, isn't there someone who speaks on behalf of God that we can speak to, that we can talk to? And one of the kings of Israel's servants, notice who's the one who said it? It's one of Jehoram's own servants, right? So if Jehoram had asked, hey, where's a prophet of the Lord that we can inquire of? One of his servants had the answer, right? And instead it took the king of Judah, Jehoshaphat, asking the question. All right, and said, Elisha the son of Shaphat is here, who used to pour water on the hands of Elijah. And that he used to be his student. He was the one who was serving Elijah. And Elijah had made a pretty good name for himself, or was pretty well known. All right, so Jehoshaphat said, the word of the Lord is with him. So the king of Israel and Jehoshaphat and the king of Edom went down to him. Now Elisha said to the king of Israel, what have I to do with you? Go to the prophets of your father and to the prophets of your mother. And the king of Israel said to him, no, for the Lord has called these 3 kings together to give them into the hand of Moab. To repeat, right? God set us up. I mean, I'm the one who decided to go try to reclaim Moab, but it was God who did it. And Elisha said, as the Lord of hosts lives, before whom I stand, were it not that I regard the presence of Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, I would not look at you nor see you. Can you imagine saying that to the president? Can you imagine saying that to a leader of a country? But Elisha, because even when Jehoram comes to Elisha, is he really interested? He already said, he's like, I already know what the Lord is doing. He's out to get me. He's out to get us. So he's not even interested in what Elisha has to say, is he? So zoom in a little bit further here. So here's a different setup of their path. So they've met somewhere in here. We don't know exactly. I'm like pointing at the screen. We don't know exactly where they are when they meet Elisha, but somewhere down in here, and we're going to see why in a moment. Sorry, that one's not a very good picture either, but all right. So Elisha said, verse 14, "As the Lord of hosts lives, before whom I stand, were it not that I regard the presence of Jehoshaphat the king of Judah, I would not look at you nor see you. But now bring me a minstrel." And it came about, when the minstrel played, that the hand of the Lord came upon him. Well, that's kind of interesting, isn't it? We usually assign like music with pagans and their own whatever, but here's an example of actually a prophet of God actually having music be a part of him prophesying. It's actually interesting, as I was looking around at this, in 1 Chronicles 25, starting verse 1, it says, "Moreover, David and the commanders of the army set apart for the service some of the sons of Asaph and of Heman and of Jeduthun, who were to prophesy with lyrics, harps, and cymbals." Okay. And the number of those who performed their service was, of the sons of Asaph, Zakur, Joseph, Nethaniah, Ashariah, and the sons of Asaph were under the direction of Asaph, who prophesied under the direction of the king. So this is not necessarily a one-off, but it is rather interesting that that's the case. Then Elisha said in verse 16, he said, "Thus says the Lord, make this valley full of trenches." We're not exactly sure where the valley was, but this is maybe in a general area. This is somewhere in the wilderness of Edom. So we're not exactly 100% sure, but a valley kind of like this. "Make the valley filled with trenches. For thus says the Lord, you shall not see wind, nor shall you see rain, yet that valley shall be filled with water, so that you shall drink, both you and your cattle and your beasts. This is but a slight thing in the sight of the Lord." So here we are. Jehoram was like, God is out to get us. We are parched. We have no water. And I don't know how many of you have gone like most of a day or all of a day, and you're like, wow, I feel really foggy-headed. I don't know why I can't think clearly. And then you're like, wait, I haven't had anything to drink today other than like maybe some coffee. And so then you drink like a nice you get to 8 ounces of water and you go, oh, man, I feel a little better. You drink like 8 more and you're like, wow, I can think so much better now. Not that I know from experience or anything like that, but you start feeling foggy-headed and you think, wait, how much water have I had today? So Jehoram's like, wow, we don't have water. We're not going to be able to fight. Can you imagine all the warriors? I've got a cramp. I can't swing my sword. Whatever. So they need water to fight, right? And so Elisha, speaking for the Lord, "Thus says the Lord, make this valley full of trenches." That's going to be water. But this is a slight thing in the sight of the Lord. This isn't anything. God can do that. God can provide you water. "He will also give the Moabites into your hand." So you're not really here under my jurisdiction. You kind of did this on your own. Jehoshaphat probably should not have been here in the first place. He wasn't supposed to have alliances with pagans, and he did. But God is not only going to save all your bacon out of dying of dehydration, but you're also going to win the battle as well. But then there's instructions. "Then you shall strike every fortified city and every choice city, and fell every good tree, and stop all springs of water, and mar every good piece of land with stones." Now, that seems really harsh. We're going to see possibly some of the reasoning that God had to completely just destroy the land of Moab, and we're going to get to that in a little bit. "Spring of water, mar every good piece with a land of stones. It happened in the morning, about the time of offering the sacrifice, that behold, water came by the way of Edom, and the country was filled with water. Now all the Moabites heard that the kings had come up to fight against them, and all who were able to put on armor and older were summoned and stood on the border. They rose early in the morning, and the sun shone on the water, and the Moabites saw the water opposite them as red as blood. Then they said, 'This is blood. The kings have surely fought together, and they have slain one another. Now therefore, Moab to the spoil.' But when they came to the camp of Israel, the Israelites arose and struck the Moabites. So they fled before them, and they went forward into the land, slaughtering the Moabites. Thus they destroyed the cities, and each one threw a stone on every piece of good land. Now, it's like, I'm going to take one rock and throw it on a good piece of land. But if you have like 100,000 people doing that, that's a lot of rocks on one piece of land, or more. We don't know how many. As we're looking, they're mustering probably 200, 300, 400,000 people, men per army. As we look at this, then they rose early in the morning, and the sun shone on. Sorry, we already read that part. Thus, verse 25, thus they destroyed the cities, and each one threw a stone on every piece of good land and filled it. So they stopped all the springs of water and felled all the good trees until Kir-Hareseth, until only they left its stones. However, the slingers went about and struck it. When the king of Moab saw that the battle was too fierce for him, he took with him 700 men who drew swords to break through to the king of Edom, possibly trying to go for Edom because it might have been the smaller of the three forces. We don't know exactly, but that's the speculation. But they could not. Then he, that is the king of Moab, took his oldest son, who was to reign in his place, and offered him as a burnt offering on the wall. So in front of all the armies. And there came great wrath against Israel, and they departed from him and returned to their own land. Now, we know that was not what God would have wanted. That's actually one of the reasons why Israel is to go in and take the land and destroy everyone, is because of what they had been doing. And one of the things that they did was child sacrifice. This is referenced in Leviticus 18:21. You shall not give any of your offspring to offer them to Moloch, nor shall you profane the name of your God. I am the Lord. In Leviticus 20, verse 3, I will also set my face against the man and will cut him off from among his people, because he has given some of his offspring to Moloch, also as to defile my sanctuary and to profane my holy name. And God took this seriously. It's kind of interesting, as I was trying to read through this and look at translator notes, there's different ways that this could be taken. So did Moab, were they rallied by the king killing his son, and so they were able to push and force Israel out of the land? Seems like that could be one of the very obvious options. That's kind of the route the NASB took. One of the other ideas, or one of the other thought processes, is Israel saw what he did, and they were completely disgusted by it and said, we're going home. We don't want to be a part of this. If God decides to judge this, we don't want to be anywhere near this. So exactly what it was that happened, it's a little bit on the fuzzy side. There's a couple different things, but I think it'd probably be safe to say Moab probably was reinvigorated with the death of the son, but also Israel was absolutely appalled by what had just happened, and they wanted to leave. So a few more things. So Kir-Hareseth, I almost blinded myself, is right around in here. Remember, Mount Nebo is up in this direction. Kir-Hareseth, and as I was looking for this, it's an ancient capital city of Moab, situated at the Transjordan on the border of Moab and Edom, at the modern city of Kerach. Kir is located at the intersection of the King's Highway, remember we learned about that, and an east-west route to the Dead Sea. So remember seeing some of the maps with, we have a road going this way, we have some roads going this way, and back and forth over through in here. The city is mentioned connected with Israel's war with Moab, indicating it was a fortified city that was the last to fall in this war. Jeremiah also includes a lament for Moab's judgment, including the inhabitants of Kir-Hareseth in Jeremiah 48, verses 1 and 36. These oracles point to the prominence of the city in the land of Moab. In the Moabite language, the word Kir means city. In Hebrew, it means wall. So, guess what, though? this isn't the only place where this got used. Guess what? This was actually a place of crusades. So that's a crusader's castle in Kir Hareseth. I don't think I don't have any. There were a couple pictures of the inside that I have, but that's a crusader's temple up, or a crusader's castle up on top, and that's looking down from it. Can you imagine trying to attack that? I can't even imagine. The King's Highway is coming in here. So the King's Highway and east-west route in the Dead Sea and beyond is right in the valley here. So we have Edom, Moab, and then what's interesting is this is called the Moabite Stone. And so this was, its significant archaeological find contains Mesha's own record of this battle. So, and other battles with Israel. On it, he claimed to have won with Chemosh's help. And Chemosh would have been who he would have sacrificed his oldest son to. There's that. So they found that. I didn't bring the translation. There's a full translation of, it's a little broken, but there is actually, you can find translations of what that was. So there we have the Elisha and the three kings. Now, what do we learn? What do we take home? It's an interesting story. We got some really neat pictures. Got to see the map, kind of see how movement were going. But even like as I was trying to think through this, what are some of the take homes? Like, why does this story matter? And I think one of the reminders is that our relationship with God is important. Jehoram had the opportunity to turn things around, and he didn't. And instead of going to Yahweh, the one true God, the God of Israel, for the answers, for help, depending on him, he, even when they went to Elisha, was already pretty, it's not really irony, but he was already thinking that God was out to get him. And you had Jehoshaphat, in contrast, who was trusting God. They were in a hard place. Jehoshaphat, I don't know if he was sitting there going, maybe I shouldn't have been here at this point. But Jehoshaphat knew that if he went to God, God would give the answers, and God would take care of them. And we see that juxtaposition between the two. We have the king of Israel and the king of Judah, and the contrast between how one responded to God and how the other one did. Now for us, I don't know about you, but there are times when my perception of God is maybe he's just out to get me. We have different things going on. Maybe you just have the one more thing come up. And you go, is God just messing with me? Like at this point, is he just yanking my chain? You never do that to other people, right? You never you never tease someone or give them a hard time, right? You never do that ever, right? So, sometimes we think God is doing that where he's just yanking our chain and making us, just teasing us. And the reality is he's not. We need to go to him, we need to trust him, and we need to obey him and do what he says. And we have Elisha here, more not as the primary character, but as the foil in which you see the contrast between Jehoram and Jehoshaphat. And let us be more like Jehoshaphat, where when things come up, we don't go, God is out to get us. No. Let's go to God. Let's ask for his guidance and care and trust him that he will do what he says. And then he does, doesn't he? And what a wonderful reminder that we have for that. So that's what we have for tonight. And I believe we're going to be getting ready for the Lord's table.